All right, y'all, let's get this over with. All right, I called the January 24th, 2024 JPS meeting to order. We're going to discuss the following updates on the Special Fire Tax District agreed upon procedures. David, at this time, the four things we talked about, could you bring Alice and them up?
And Debbie.
Yes.
Well, I called them.
This is Debbie,
I'm
District 7.
I'm gonna write a thing. I am a them.
Allison and them.
Alice, Debbie, and them.
Okay, please.
All right. So since our last meeting, council had, I think the committee had requested that I meet with the chiefs. We've done that over a period of months. Specifically, we've met with Newport, Oakdale, and Flint Hill, along with some of their consultants or representatives, to try and flesh out some of the issues we had that were identified in the AUP first presented in September of 2022. So, we still really the same issues, but just to expand on them and bring you up to speed on to where we are as staff. And our interpretation is really there's four things that we have an interest in resolving, and that's what I expressed to the chiefs. The first two are fairly simple. The fire district boards, they are subject to the Freedom of Information Act, and because of that, they need to publish agendas, do minutes for all the meetings, and have a quorum for all their meetings, and that sort of thing. They've all agreed, or at least the ones I've talked to, that they understand they need to do that. Some had some concerns that maybe their boards were not, had full appointments, so I think, perhaps Karen needs to do an assessment of who needs board members, and so they may be able to fill a quorum. But generally speaking, there was no resistance or I guess even concern about that as far as I can tell. The second item we talked about a lot, I call it the barbecue money. It's the fundraiser money outside of their, what the volunteer departments raise, outside of their whatever tax revenue they get. We are still of the opinion that they need to provide an accounting for that information, or for those accounts to us. I think some or maybe all have a different opinion of that. And at one time we had talked about having those funds deposited into a county account and have them have access to it. We don't think that's necessary. Again, we do still think there's a reporting element to that we will request. It'll be, the volunteer departments hold that information, so it'll fall on them to either provide it or not provide it, and then it'll fall on management and council to address it if they're not provided. But we've agreed to kind of remove that as an issue. It is our position that they do need to provide it, but again, we don't have any way to compel them to provide it. So those two items, I think we've moved on from. The third item, primarily an accounting function of their accounts payable. We have a variety of ways right now where we provide money to the districts or pay their bills. And we'd just like to make that consistent from an accounting standpoint, where rather than us write them a check where they would have funds in a department account, we don't feel there's a need to do that. So we had set July 1 as a target date to work on their accounts payable, where they would just submit invoices to us and we would pay those. Same way we do with every county department that we have. We don't have any other departments that maintain a checkbook or anything like that, and don't see any reason why the departments would need to do that either. So that's purely an accounting function that was addressed in the agreed upon procedures, and that's how we intend to move forward on that. The last item really involves, the tax district employees. Not talking about anybody that might be employed by the volunteer departments, and I don't know that there is anybody that's employed by the volunteer departments, but anybody that's employed with, paid for with tax district dollars, it is our opinion, or has been our opinion, that they should be county employees, and in fact may already be county employees in terms of the law. However, I understand through discussing with our attorney today, there may be some ambiguity there, there may be some differing opinions, and so I think to some extent that's an unsettled question right now. And our position all along has been that if they have to be county employees, then certainly they need to be county employees. If they don't have to be county employees, then we're fine with them not being county employees. So it really comes down to a legal question, is it necessary that they be county employees? If it is determined that that's necessary, then the other question was, well, who would they report to? And I think if they are determined to be county employees, then they would need to report to a county organization, whatever that might be. Now that might be the county manager, like all other employees of the county are, or maybe they could report directly to the district tax boards. I think if, again, that's a legal question, understood that may be a possibility. I don't really have developed an opinion on whether that'd be appropriate or in the best interest of the county, but I think the larger question is, do we need to resolve, are they in fact county employees? So those are really the four issues that we've come down to. I don't think from a management or an accounting standpoint that we have other unresolved issues. I mean, the departments may have something. They have, as far as I know, haven't expressed anything to me that there's something else unresolved. So I think it comes down to those four issues, and happy to expand on those if you have any questions.
Did Michael Kendry leave?
I think he's coming back.
Oh.
Um,
So how do we determine if they're, what's the process to determine if they're county employees?
I mean, I think that's just a legal question. So management will await some,
Okay, so-
determination on that.
Okay, what is currently happening with them? Do
The
they get
employ-
a W-2? Do they get a 1099?
Well, just to make
what's-
sure we're clear on what we're talking about. The county
Yes.
has a
Well-
number of fire employees that work directly for the county that are hired by, Morris Russell's hired by me, the county manager. Morris hires all the people that work for him that are out there. They fix our vehicles. We have a response team that assists the other departments with firefighting during the day. So those are clearly being treated as county employees. And that's clear. What's not clear is some of the departments, I think Flint Hill is the largest employer. They have a number of full-time employees that are paid by the fire tax district, which is tax money. And again, we think because they're paid by the tax district, that means they're county employees in some way. However, that's what they report to now, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, to say Flint Hill, they report to the Flint Hill chief, and that chief reports to the Flint Hill Tax District Board. So that's what's in place right now, and that's pretty consistent among all the departments. However, it varies greatly as to how many employees they have. Some have none, some have some part-timers, some have a few mix of part-time and full-time, and so I guess that's the gamut of what we run is 0 to, I think, David, is it 20?
38.
38 full-time?
That's what David said.
38 paid.
Okay.
Okay, so,
38 paid across, just at that one department?
Yeah, Flint Hill would have 38, but they're not all full-time, is that correct?
No, 24 are full-timers.
Okay.
About 12 are part-timers, and then there's 2 admin people.
All right, what I was wanting,
I got to ask another question.
okay,
Okay, so these folks, do they get benefits that the county employees get?
They get benefits, but we do not know what benefits they, I mean, we don't have a good understanding of all the benefits they get and how that might be different than what county benefits are, how that might be different from what benefits are supplied to other full-time or part-time firefighters in other districts. And I think that's part of this concern raised by the agreed upon procedures is that they very well may be county employees that are treated differently across departments. And, it's our expectation that they would all be treated similarly, whether they're county employees or not. That's what the AUP suggested.
Yeah, I think that they're all have different benefits varying across the board, and, you know, I'll tell you one thing I learned meeting Tuesday, you know, like the two gentlemen in the back, only two paid chiefs we have, one's been able to be in PRS and the other one's not. And, you know, it's just some concerns raised about that. I don't have any definitive answers on there, but, you know, it is very inconsistent as to how they're treated with benefits across the county right now, to answer your
Do they
question.
want to be employees or they don't want to be employees?
We have not polled any of them, so individually, I don't know what the firefighters, I know the chiefs, generally speaking, the ones I've talked to would prefer not to be county employees. I don't want to speak for all of them, but that's the feeling I get. But again, we haven't polled any of the employees, so we don't
And
know.
is there a reason why they wouldn't want to be employees?
I think,
Or keep the method that they've got right now?
you mean the individual firefighters or the chiefs?
Yeah, I don't understand the difference between them, and if they really want to stay in the method they are now, or would they get more, would they understand that they get more benefits or not as many benefits?
If I can try to answer that with based on the meeting, and Carl, David, y'all chime up if you can. You know, I sort of got tagged with the payroll portion that's airing the AP, and the way I explained it to them, you know, I would much appreciate if somebody walked in my office and said, "You're a state employee, period, deal with it." Wouldn't like it one bit. My expectation would be to work with the chiefs, starting with those two, since they're the only paid chiefs we got, and then meet with employees, and have it to where it's a win-win. And this is exactly what I told them. At the end of the day, I'd want the firefighters to be happy
Yeah,
coming to the
exactly.
county to become employees, and it needs to be a win-win. This can't be something where we punish anybody or anybody makes less money or gets worse benefits. It has to be viewed as a positive, otherwise we're gonna have chaos throughout the county. And that was sort of the task that I have, to work with the firefighters to make it something they would wanna do and they see as a benefit, not a deterrent. And, you know, that was the first meeting we had, so it's not like anything got solved or resolved. I think we had a good candid discussion about stuff. And the discussion of benefits is where the fact that, you know, Newport had asked to be county employees and to be able to get on PRS and were told they couldn't. That's where that came to light. And I imagine as we talk to the other departments, other things might come to light. But the end goal would be, to speak to your question, my desire would be to make it to where they see it as a positive to be county employees. And I tell you now, we're not there right now, but that would be the goal.
So I think you use an example of two paid chiefs, but there are more examples of volunteer chiefs. So if you've got county employees, and I don't know exactly how it works now, but those that count, I know how it has not worked in the past, and I know how it hopefully is working a little differently. But if you've got paid county employees, they have to answer to, in my opinion, they have to answer to a chief of that department. And, you know, they're all saying too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Well, we don't want to get in a situation where we got too many chiefs. So, you know, my concern, Kevin, is not the paid chiefs, because the paid chiefs are going to be very happy. They're county employees, and most county employees are, you know, they're making more money and they've got benefits and that kind of thing. It's the volunteer chiefs that are trying to manage a paid department or paid employees where there might be a little bit of a
Yeah, and that was a question that got raised in the meeting, was it week before last or whatnot. We talked with them, and I used your district as an example there. Bethel, your chief is not paid, but he does have paid employees that report to him, and this is for operations. And ultimately, those employees are accountable to the tax board, but you've got a relationship with your chief and the tax board where I don't think you've got much rub, and y'all speak up. I saw Steve over there. Y'all, it works.
It works for
Now,
us.
and listen, every district is different in how they do things. Every district's different, and there's a variety of things that need to be worked through and ironed out. You know, that might very well be the kind of model that we follow everywhere else with that, where you don't have a paid chief. I can't tell you that for sure, because I've only talked to 2 districts right now, but, you know, the goal would be to vet through all those things and be able to come up and recommend something that works, because, again, it'd be pointless to recommend to council something and the firefighters something that's just gonna create chaos and frustration throughout the county. And you get frustration when people don't understand. And, you know, that was a lot of what we talked about, was just sort of understanding what's going on. And you're not gonna have a big group meeting with a variety of issues being thrown around where people can truly understand things. That's gonna take multiple meetings. And as I promised Tommy last week, you know, I would meet and talk with everybody. And I'm not gonna come back and present something that doesn't make sense. That's the approach I'm taking on regarding the payroll side.
All right. What I want to do now is run through all those 4 that David run through. After discussing, talking with a lot of them, you ain't got no problem on number 1. They all actually think that that should be done. They have no problem with the minutes and reporting and all. On the private funds and all, most all of them, in November, they generally, all of them report to the Secretary of State on their private money. All right? I found out though, I think from my checking, that Bethel and Leslie are basically the only 2 departments in the tax districts that have the 501c3 in place. Is that not correct, y'all?
We do have it at Bethel.
Okay. I guess, I don't know if this would be a question for you or Aaron, but would that 501c3 and what the state does not be safe and equivalent enough?
The requirements, and I think there's an ordinance in place that requires that the balances be provided annually. And of course, we want it to be 630, and there's also an accounting requirement, GASB, which is governmental GAAP, that those numbers be reported. And again, we've got a written manager comment about that. We spoke our piece. It rests with council.
Okay.
Y'all do what you want with it from this point, is basically what we're saying.
Right. Well, I think those 2 issues can be. On the direct assistance money, though, after talking to a lot of them, I can understand why they don't want the county involved in that, because every department, different size, different needs, require different things. And it's gonna be a hassle if they need a box of screws or a water hose or whatnot. I can see how that can get
Well,
entangled, and none of them's operating the same. They don't do the same amount of calls or anything, and plus, that's also going to jump out of the tax district ones, and it's going into the volunteer departments. Because, am I not correct that y'all saying all 16 departments
yeah,
will have to?
like one thing last week,
account
you know,
for it?
I threw up there just from a materiality standpoint. If the money that the volunteers and everybody got, we wanted to do that a little differently. I said I could live with that, and Christy didn't like. She wanted to be consistent, and you know, we can be consistent. And paying bills is something we do a lot of. We buy nails and screws and screwdrivers and everything else all over the place. Aaron's specifically tasked with handling that,
Yep.
and we've got the young lady that's going to be doing the fire district accounting back there as well. That I'd encourage all the fire chiefs to meet and talk with. Angela, you want to just wave to everybody right now? Okay. Listen, I get it that people are going to have to change up maybe a little bit how they're doing things, but paying bills is something we're quite capable
Well,
of doing.
that part of it I don't think is much of an issue as, you know, what they require. I mean, if they got to sit there and wait around to get the money for something that they're needing right.
And I've heard those complaints as well about the process, this and that. And, you know, one thing, and this is, we sort of delved into that Tuesday, I guess it was, when we met over there, you know, how things are going to roll. Like Flint Hill and Newport, you know, they got plenty of staff. They can process that and send it over directly themselves. You go to a smaller district, that invoice would need to come over to Angela. Angela, who's gonna have to be very aware of what's going on, would be the preparer of the check requests. And then Garth would probably most likely be the one to approve it and it gets processed. We can make sure those processes aren't so that stuff doesn't get paid. I've heard the complaints, I've heard the gripes, but it goes here, it goes there, sits on so-and-so's desk. We can work that out. That's not difficult. That can be done. That is an easy lift.
Right. But since we've hired Angela, why couldn't it go back to the original way when they did before? I mean,
That's not the best, that's not the right way to do it. We are plenty capable of paying the bills.
right, I understand,
I
but
get that some people like having the bills, you know, they wanna get the bill, they wanna get the money, then they wanna pay the bill. And I get that, that's sort of there's some pride involved in that, and I get and respect that, but we need to be consistent with how they do these things. And we've got departments all across the county, and we manage to pay all those bills just fine.
I know I've heard that, but what I'm getting at is each one of them has individual needs. I mean, that's where I'm coming from, and if there ain't a problem, why do we need to correct what ain't a problem?
I think we did find through those AUPs, there were some issues, and just because you had anything blow up yet, doesn't mean you need to keep it going. There's a better way
Right.
to do it. It's gonna be my answer to that.
Yeah, and then on 4, on whether or not they become paid employees, well, right now, the way it's set up, they answer to their tax district board, all right? Tax district board has the ability to hire, fire, whatever, Well, what's gonna happen to that board?
That's largely gonna depend on council.
Well, I think it also depends on the legal interpretation we get going forward. I mean, my understanding is, you know, there may be an opportunity for that not to change. If, you know, either they're not county employees, or even if they are, they can still report up through the, tax district boards. That was a question they asked us at our last meeting, and we're trying to get that answered for them. So, I don't know if we have a definitive answer, or I know we don't have a definitive answer right now, but it may be that it would operate similar to what we're talking about, what you're talking about. But there may need to be changes based on whatever legal determination we get.
Right, well,
And those changes would have to be through the change in the ordinance. So
In
that
the
would be
ordinance.
Prerogative of council based on the
Yeah.
recommendation of council and management.
but it's my understanding what brought all this about was when Robert brought up and made a request, right? Previously.
That was a question asked by Mr. Winkler. Yeah, we've all beaten that to death, and
Yeah,
it was a tax district that had an increase, and as I told him, I as a practice tried to stay out of the details of the budget as long as they submitted balanced budgets. And yeah, that's I think what got kicked those
Yeah.
AUPs off, and here we are 2 years later.
but y'all firmly don't think just with the auditing like they used to do and whatnot, because I guess what I'm saying, from y'all's viewpoint, see, I never, I mean, did council need, I don't never remember council or issuing for this to even
Well, I just
occur.
said, council, y'all set policy.
Yeah,
We figure out how to pay the bills. We do that.
Right.
Management does that. So we don't want council down there saying, we want to send this through a wire over here, or we want to do a cashier's check here. No.
yeah,
Paying the bills is where management can make those decisions on that, and we're plenty capable of paying the bills, and I don't want to profess that Angela will be perfect, but she's gonna meet with the tax
Well,
districts to make sure she
And
understands it.
would
And
add
I get
on to
that.
We've got the AUP suggesting that we do it differently.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think there's some instances cited, and I'll defer to my 2 CPAs here, but the way we're proposing is a better way to do it.
Well, but y'all don't know how y'all gonna do it yet.
Yes, we
Oh,
do.
yeah. Trust me, we can get the bills paid. I promise you.
No, well, I'm talking about this because, I mean, there was, several things that you said you wasn't sure
Name me a
on
bill,
yet.
name me a bill.
I'm not
I'll tell
talking
you
about
how to
just
pay it.
bills, I'm talking about all this in general.
The remaining questions really
The
come right now to get you-
implementation and-
to get the legal opinion regarding the employee status, okay? That's really what's out there floating around. And, you know, we'd hope to have that by tonight, but we'll get that. And that, the legal, what needs to be done legally is what we're gonna do. And I don't think anybody on council is gonna say, you know
Oh,
what?
I ain't
We think they need to be
questioning-
treated as employees, but we're just not gonna do it and we'll see you in court. And that's gonna want to decide that. I really don't think there's, you know, the first one, nobody's fighting that. Everybody's gonna do that. The second one rests with council. Y'all know the deal, y'all do what you're gonna do with it, we're done talking about it. The third one, we can pay their bills. And the fourth one is gonna be determined by the attorneys.
Right.
How long is this looking to take for that one question to be answered? On employees or not?
That's, I'm not coming up with an answer, that's not me.
Either or, but it's like we beating this horse to death over this thing. If
Tommy.
there's the law says they need to be
Are you
paid
letting everybody
county
speak at
employees,
once?
let's let them be paid employees. If the law is there,
Well,
tell us what it is, and that'll go away.
I think the legal counsel is gonna give a memo to county council and management and let them,
Yeah.
evaluate and go and enforce forward.
You know, and Tommy, you know, and we've talked about this over the years as well too, and this is one thing I wanna make clear to all you out there. If the firefighters, and you've got how many, Tommy? How many paid do you have?
Right now, one full-time and 6 part-time.
6 part-time. You know, if those guys talk to us and they wanna be county employees, are you gonna have heartburn with that?
I got no problem, they want.
Yeah, and that's, and
That's
again,
it.
end of the day, and I'll circle back to the employee thing, you know, it'll be driven primarily by like, the way I look at it like this is there's either gonna be a definitive gun put to your head, this is what you better do, or else you're gonna be in court, cause you're not treating them all the same. Or it's gonna be something where the firefighters, and this is what I prefer, where the firefighters see a benefit out of it. And they wanna do it. It's gonna be one of those two things, but again, what I wanna let y'all know and let everybody out there understand is, ain't nobody gonna try to force anybody to do anything like that just because we want this or that. David Hudspeth wants somebody under his thumb. There ain't any of that going on. Promise you that. And, you know, I very frank, direct, honest conversation with Carl and David, and eventually I'll get around to having that with all of y'all, and at some point HR be involved. And let's say down the road it comes out, you know what, they don't have to be county employees, but you might wanna be. There's some benefits to it. You know, Carl's a prime example of where some benefits of that. And maybe it turns out you don't have to be county employees, and y'all say, you know what, we don't like Mr. Hudspeth, we're just not. And so be it, you're not. I don't wanna overcomplicate it, but I also wanna make sure everyone understands, the way it got presented in the meeting over at Newport was not ideal, and I'm sure it came across like a gun being pulled out and you're gonna be this, that, and the other. Not the intent of anybody over here, and I'll be the first to say I don't think that was delivered in the best possible way. The idea is gonna be to work with y'all and see if it's a plus or not, and maybe we don't have a choice in it. But even if we don't have a choice in it, I will not take the approach of trying to work with y'all where it's something people are bitter and angry about. Even if you have to by law, you're all county employees and shouldn't get start with, we still wanna make it a win-win for everybody. Even if the law says you have to, doesn't mean we say, you know what, they're gonna come and we're gonna pay them as little as possible and they can grovel and come through that door and, you know, they're the ones cleaning the bathrooms. No, not at all. We want it to be a win-win for everybody, and this is like what I told Tommy and Christie last week. I'm gonna work towards that, I promise you that. That's what I'm gonna work towards, and I'll talk with all the firefighters, the chiefs, and then the volunteers for the paid, with their volunteer chiefs and so forth, to see what we can get to. I mean, you know, most of y'all are a lot easier to deal with one-on-one than as a group, to be honest with you. But we'll meet with everybody individually, we'll meet with the group, and, you know, I'm gonna shoot you straight on that. But at the end of the day, you know, if it comes back, you don't have to be, and you say we have no interest in it, so be it. We're not pushing that issue, but you might want to be, you know?
And just to follow up, I think all of you that have been in these meetings have heard me say, if you don't have to be employees, my job's a lot easier if you're not employees. And so, just as Kevin said, it's not because we want you to be employees. If the law says you need to be employees, then we need you to be employees. And if you don't have to be employees and you don't wanna be employees, then that's ultimately up to council.
So question, if we determine that they need to be employees, what's that chain of command look like?
Well, we're trying to resolve that as well. I mean, you guys asked, could they report directly up to the board? We think that's a possibility, and, you know, and that's how it operates now. It may be that there's no change, no significant change necessary. Trying to get that answer for you as well. I'd hope to have that, but I don't right now.
David, shouldn't we have this contract that you talked about resolved and agreed upon by everyone before you do the employees?
Well,
I mean,
just to be clear, the contract that we talked about, and that was really Lawrence Flynn at the time, is as I understand it, is a contract we would have between the county and the volunteer departments.
right,
Correct.
correct.
And the volunteers don't have employees, and the volunteers aren't in part of this discussion because that discussion that we're having relates to the fire tax districts. So I don't necessarily think the contract has to be in place before we resolve these issues, because these issues involve fire tax districts.
However,
I do think
the
we
direct-
need a fire, contract in place with all the volunteer departments that spells out everything that we deal with and everything, you know, that every relationship we have with you, so yes, that needs to be done.
So when you talked about the money, going and paying the bills, is that the tax district money, the operations funds, both, or only the tax district money?
It's all money that's generated through taxes.
Okay,
and
so
that-
again, this goes back to the verbal contract in 1966 that was given to Bethel, is here's your direct assistance money. Do with it as you need to operate your department. We'll audit you every year, and that's the way we've been operating. So again, without a contract, it just changes whenever you feel like it. It's just one of those things where if we failed an audit, or if we fail an audit twice, then, or something like that, then, but right now, this is the contract and this is the way we've been operating since 1966.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any kind of verbal contract that.
Well, it has to be verbal because there's nothing written down.
Well, I'll let the two CPAs up here answer as to why it's not the best practice. So I don't know that there's any contractual obligation for us to continue a procedure that is, less efficient and less, provides less controls than what they're
Oh, we fixed
suggesting,
to cut
what
it
our,
out.
auditors suggested be done, which is for us to pay your bills directly. I mean, Kevin and, Aaron, I'll let y'all.
You said it just fine.
Well, let me say this, which I agree, because they were told when they started the special tax district, and they plainly say they asked, and y'all said that, no, you're not county employees. And then it wasn't too while back that they all had to get their own insurance because the county said, no, we're not gonna carry you on our insurance. So they got their own insurance. So, I mean, my biggest question is whatever initiated and brought this up, if none of them have low ISO ratings, and I'm yet to really understand what anybody done wrong. I mean, did anybody do anything wrong?
Aside from the few things that were listed in those reports, this is not a response to somebody doing something wrong. We've never made a big deal out of anything that was done wrong. We're not saying anybody did anything wrong. We are charged with putting the best accounting processes in place, and that's what we're doing. We're also charged with following the law. So again, if the law requires them to be employees, it doesn't matter what they were told in 1985, and things may have been different in 1985, I'm sure they were. But if things have evolved to where now they are county employees, we can't just say, well, sorry, Carl, we told you 20 years ago you weren't, the law says you are, we have to make that change. So that may be driven by law. The other changes we're suggesting may be driven by best accounting
Well,
practice.
do we know what that law is?
Well,
It's a compilation of various aspects of the law to reach a certain conclusion.
Well, then, if we don't know this and we don't know that, I recommend that, first of all, this target date, nobody's ready for a target date, because we don't even know how we're gonna implement or what we're exactly gonna do. So-
Nobody said that.
Huh?
That's not what I've said. I've said
Are you
we
talking about
certainly make that
personnel?
date.
I'm talking about, y'all said y'all wanted to set a deadline for July 1st.
July 1st is when we're gonna start paying all the bills, and we're gonna follow the law regarding employees. Whatever that might be, if we don't get a legal opinion until August, so be it, but we'll follow the law on that. But we're gonna start paying the bills July 1st.
Regardless of how council feels or what.
Council doesn't pay the bills. Council doesn't dictate how bills get paid. That's not the role of council. I don't mean to be rude or disrespectful, but that is not council's responsibility. That's management, staff's responsibility to pay the bills.
So, but you don't look at the direct assistance.
I'm not gonna engage the audience in that.
Allison, what you got to say?
Okay, so, here's what I think, and this is what I thought last time we met and the previous time that we met. We need to meet every 30 days. Last time I said, do we wanna meet every 30 days, every 45 days? And, Bill stood up, he said, every 30 days. And I thought we committed to that. Even in the minutes of this agenda, it's incorrect. It says we'll meet every 2 months. We need to adjust that. That needs to be fixed. But here is why we need to meet every 30 days. Because it's been, and I know, times we couldn't meet, that's beside the point. I'm talking about not looking back, but going forward. And the reason we need to meet every 30 days is because, number one, we got 2 committee members here who have not been included in meetings that have been held by our chair and Tommy, county management, and legal department, and I'm not happy about that. Because as a committee meeting person, when I am at a meeting with my fire departments and they have a question of me and they've heard something somewhere else from another meeting, I got a problem with that. Unless that's just Morris, who oversees fire service, which I don't have an issue with him talking to everybody. But if it's something that a portion of this committee and a council chair and any other council members are involved in, ahead of them and me, that's you.
That's both of y'all.
Yeah, them. We are gonna be them, okay?
I want a little name tag right here with my name.
I'll get you one. So,
Karen?
it's very important, in my opinion, that we communicate, not only that we are communicated with as a full committee, but that we communicate as a committee with everybody that's in this room and those that couldn't be here tonight. Because we're not just talking about a little something to these guys.
Yeah,
We're talking about a lot of something.
yeah.
And these people have invested, Bethel, 54 years people have been invested in that fire department, and it's their heart and soul, and we are all working together. I go to their meetings, but I don't want to go to their meetings and hear something that's happened in some little meeting that, even down here, we've had meetings with Newport, Oakdale, and Flint Hill. Well, that's great for Newport, Oakdale, and Flint Hill, but what about the other departments that are wondering what's going on? So we've had a few months now for people to wonder. We don't have all the answers we need tonight. I appreciate the update. I think that's great, and I hope I'm fully updated on everything. But I think we need to meet again as close to February 24th as we can, and we need to continue this discussion. And, there are things, Kevin's absolutely right, there are things that county government does that does not have anything to do with county council or individual fire departments or any other departments. That's a management decision. I think we have to follow best legal policy and those things. But we don't know what that is yet. It does concern me that the person who is doing our legal stuff also read an article in County Focus about doing away with fire tax boards. It is not, in my opinion, in the best interest of the community to do away with fire tax boards. They are in place for a reason, and I do not want York County to be headed in that direction, period, and I'll fight you on that. I am 100% solid on fire tax boards, and it doesn't matter to me if paid people answer to a volunteer chief, a paid chief, a fire tax board, it doesn't matter to me who they answer to, but that level of that is for the people of York County and that live in those districts. They oversee the money for those folks, and I think they're in a very important volunteer role themselves, and so I feel very, very strong about that. The other things that are on here, but board subject to FOIA, obviously. Barbecue money, I said one time before, I don't really care what you do with the barbecue money. I stand by that. I mean, I think it would be nice if when the county asks for that, you're able to show them what you've done with it and be willing to show what you've done with that. But that's a volunteer fire department money, and you know, I don't think the county paying your bills is a big issue. I don't think that's an issue for you. Pick your battles, and then the paid employees. I think we would like to, you know, maybe we don't wait 30 days to meet again if we had that information. But I think it's very important that we have that information and be able to share that information, not to a select group, but to the whole group at one time. I think that's very important. It's very important to me as a committee person.
The opinion's gonna come to that point, excuse me for interrupting, but that opinion's gonna be the form of a legal analysis that'll be for counsel, not for sharing publicly.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So we got any motion?
So my recommendation, it's not really a motion, but my recommendation is that we meet again at least by February the 24th to get an additional update on anything that happens over the next 30 days.
Yeah. But I would like to make a motion, because I'd like to have a memo of the specific details from the county and a memo, if possible, from Lawrence on his opinions. Is this the only way about doing this?
I think we get that update at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
I think Michael spoke to the legal memo you'll get, and that's a little different. That's not gonna be public, and he spoke to that. I think we can certainly disseminate to the committee or council, and I don't know which would be probably better. And what do you want, a summation of these 4 things again in the memo?
Well, I just, in my opinion, and I've heard from them, most of them feel it was like a order coming down that, I think this whole thing would have went smoother if y'all would have involved all the chiefs in it and let them been a part of the process of what in the world was going on instead of.
Yeah, I'll own that. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Tommy. I don't think that was, you know, the way the setting was
Well, wait a
not
minute,
ideal.
wait a
But
minute.
I haven't been on all the meetings. I just went to that one. I'm sorry.
It's hard for you to weigh in when you haven't been to the meetings, number one. We've had a number of meetings. We met with the chiefs that y'all asked us to meet with, and we've had those discussions with them, and we're reporting those back to you now. So that's the process. And I was a little unclear about what you want in the memo, so if you maybe could restate that.
Well, specifics, the nitty gritty of how this is gonna work. I mean, we said we're gonna do this, and this, but
What is gonna work? I mean, what do you need?
the layout of it,
we
I'm-
have
of everything here, I mean, it's what you wanna do, but know how we're gonna do it.
procedures. Yeah, we can give it.
But
It's easy.
is that what you want, how we're gonna roll out the accounts?
Right,
payable part?
and Lawrence, who wrote this rethinking rural fire departments article, and plus who y'all been, talking with, is this the only option out
We're
there?
I
not
don't think
saying
you can
it's
get
the only
Lawrence
option.
to write
We're
your
saying it's
memo.
the best option.
Right.
That's, I mean, the way we're doing it, there's nothing illegal.
But as far as us on council, shouldn't we hear at least several options?
I'm sorry?
Shouldn't we hear at least several options?
Again, as Kevin stated, how we pay bills, the controls we put in place is a management responsibility. And we could give you a lot of different options, but but council doesn't vote on the options of how we pay bills. So I think that's pointless to do that. We could justify to you and provide to you how we intend to do it. You know, all the controls that'll be in place. But that's you know, if you're asking me, what's all the options, there's any unlimited number of options of how we could do that. What we're proposing is what we deem to be the best option. And again, I got 2 CPAs here, we got a report written by a CPA, and, you know, we think that's the best course to follow in order to implement the best way to pay bills. That's what we're charged with, Tommy, is determining what is the best way for us to do accounting and pay bills from an efficiency standpoint, from a control standpoint, and all that. So it doesn't really matter how many options might be out there. What matters is that we choose the best option.
And the legal letter, Tommy, I don't want you to think you're misguided on that, but Michael's gonna be providing y'all a legal letter. Y'all can't engage Lawrence on your own to write just a memo. Did I butcher that, Michael?
Yeah, we're gonna be providing, Lawrence and I spoke today, we're gonna provide a memo to council on the various permutations of the employee status question for you to evaluate.
And that will even factor in the reporting to board question as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be comprehensive.
One last concern, and that is that, the guys who are hired by the county also have to be, EMT, am I using the right term? They have to be EMTs. That would be didn't know that was gonna happen when I actually voted to hire those guys, and maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not, I don't know the answer to that. But it would be a limitation to fire departments if those paid guys working in the individual fire departments had to also be EMTs. That's not something that I would really be in favor of.
Yeah, and I think we can address that. We've talked briefly about it, and if Morris wants to expand on that, we can, but right now, I think we have a firefighter 2, is that correct?
Yeah, we can do multiple different jobs.
Different levels.
descriptions, level wise to figure out how to.
For our employees, we want them to be EMT certified, but that may not be the case. We may have to create a job description for one of the other departments to where
I
they
mean,
don't have to be.
it's great if they do,
Right.
but I just think you limit, you know, when you're trying to get people like that to do that job, you limit, you know.
So there'd probably be a different pay range, a different job description, and maybe a different designation
Yeah.
for somebody that's not.
Okay. I just wouldn't want that to be a requirement
Sure.
for that.
We're even looking at 4 different designations, maybe 5 for part-time folks.
Okay.
I mean, it's just trying to open it up across
Yeah.
the board.
Okay.
A W-2 employee is considered a part-timer, right? Or county W-2 employee?
Part-timers would be issued a W-2, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
All right, to wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right, I think we done discussed and enough on it.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 25th, 2023 meeting, and it's possible that does not need to be changed because that discussion about meeting every other month is referring to something different. However, we haven't met every 30 days, and I think we should do that going forward. Can I get a second?
Oh, okay, I'll make the motion, we approve the minutes.
No, I've already done that. You just
Oh,
need a
I'm gonna
second.
second.
Second. Now we have another motion?
No, all in favor?
Ah,
Aye.
but you wanna make a motion in 30 days we meet again?
Do we have to make a motion that we meet? You can just call
Or
a meeting.
can I
You
just call
a meeting, yeah.
You just call a meeting when you're ready.
Okay.
Do we have executive session? Anything for okay, so I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I second.
Ah, let's go. We got nowhere, but let's go.